I've had anxiety for pretty much as long as I can remember. I used to get very car sick when I was a little kid. My dad really enjoyed going out to restaurants, and once we got to the restaurant, I would get ordered something, of course, and my parents, trying to be loving parents, would encourage me to finish everything on my plate. But I felt really car sick, and so I couldn't. And so then, my dad would maybe get a little bit mad at me and thought that I was being stubborn and that sort of thing. And I created in my mind at a very young age a negative association between restaurants and going out to eat and, feelings of anxiety. And so I was fine eating at home for the most part. Sometimes, depending on what dinner was being served, if I felt like it was a fancier dinner, I couldn't even really sit at my dinner table because I was just so concerned with what everyone else was thinking of me at the table, and all of my self-worth was being poured into how much was left on my plate. And it was never really a body image issue. I never, that's what a lot of people would ask me, well, were you bulimic or whatever, and it never was, because once I was out of that situation, I could eat a whole pizza by myself and it would be fine, but it's just that association with the pressure of the table. And so as I got older, that's like the thing that you do when you go on dates with people, is you go out to a restaurant, and I found that I was starting to avoid things in my life in order to stay away from these situations that would make me anxious. I had the opportunity to go to homecoming 4 years, and I only chose to go once because just the thought of the dinner beforehand was enough to make me not go for 3 years. And junior prom, I ordered a bowl of rice for dinner. That was it, because I was just so anxious and I just felt like I couldn't do it, and it totally ruined my entire prom that I felt like I couldn't do it. And I took a class in high school, like an intro psychology class, and we started talking about phobias. And, everybody writes down something stupid like, I'm afraid of spiders, or, and my teacher's like, well, that's not really a phobia. And so she had us write a little essay, and I wrote my essay on not being able to eat in restaurants and how it really scared me, and would have these panic attacks, and sometimes I would get to the point where I would throw up because I was just so anxious, and I didn't really know why. And she pulled me aside later, and she's like, can we talk about this? This is a real thing. All these other people are turning in things where they think that they have a real fear, but there's something going on here. And she referred me to the school psychologist, and they thought about getting me some therapy, but I wasn't really ready to face it with my family yet. And so it kind of just dampered down. But it was the first time that my anxiety was really on my radar, that, wow, this isn't normal. Other people don't feel like this in what tends to be a fun situation for other people. I'm hating my life. And so I got to college, and I thought to myself, well, they have free counseling in college. I might as well go take advantage of it, right? And so I started seeing a counselor once a week for maybe 2 years, and she helped me deal with things, but it wasn't quite enough to really take over the anxiety of being in restaurants. She kind of helped me deal with my past and that sort of thing, but it never really touched on the day-to-day what was bothering me, where I was still avoiding all of these activities and that sort of thing. And I think it was valuable for me to go through my past that way, but it wasn't getting to the root of anything. Or I wasn't seeing any real change. I think that was my problem. And so I spoke with Emily about it, my friend, and she said, well, I have this really great program called Learn to Live, and they're kind of trying to figure it out. Would you like to participate in it? And I said, well, wouldn't hurt, worst case scenario, I'm exactly the same today as I was, however long ago. And so I decided to give it a try, and it was just a really easy way to go through a program. It wasn't sit down with so-and-so at such and such time for an hour and, talk about all these painful things, and you feel like crap for 2 hours afterward, and then, go on living your life as normal. I got to sit down when I wanted to and go through it as quickly or as slowly as I wanted to, and I really started to analyze what associations I was actually making in my mind. And where these negative thoughts were coming from and how they were linking to the things that I had put together in my past previously. And that really helped me start to tackle my anxiety. And of course, it took a lot of practice. It took probably 4, 5, 6 months before I felt like I was, completely to a point where I could be proud. But it was tough. But I really feel like I've changed a lot.
How is your life?
My life is totally different. I have no trouble going out to eat, no matter what the circumstance. I still have these thoughts that creep up in the back of your mind, like, at the very beginning when you sit down, like, don't order something too expensive, or else if you waste it, then so-and-so's not going to like you, and da-da-da-da-da. And then I'm like, stop, But it's much easier to shut those thoughts down. Like, this past weekend, my boyfriend took me out for a steak dinner, and we had a great time, and I didn't finish my steak, and he still cares about me. So, it just makes me feel much more secure and happier and less stressed about stuff that you don't need to be stressed about at all. I remember our first date was pretty much right after I completed the program. So I completed in December, and we went on our first date, official date, in a restaurant in midway through January. And so I was like, okay, I haven't told him anything about my anxiety. I'm gonna see if I can just do it and see if he'll notice or see if I can do it. And I was in my apartment pacing around, really anxious beforehand. And then he sent me a text message to say he was in my driveway, and I took a deep breath, and I had my Learn to Live worksheets out, and I said, okay, this is not right, this is not right, this is not right, I can do this. And I left the house, and the date was wonderful. I didn't have any anxiety the whole date, and I kept thinking to myself, when we got out in the parking lot, I just about jumped up and down because I was so excited that I had just made it through a date with somebody I barely knew, and that was something I never thought that I could do, and had a great time. And of course, I couldn't jump up and down in the parking lot because that would kind of give it away that I was dealing with something, but yeah.
How you doing back there, John?
Awesome.
Putting you on the spot, man. All right.
I like listening.
Do you want to get on the camera at all for fun?
I'm
Sit on my
okay.
lap.
There you go.
I enjoy listening about our dates.
Yeah, this is good, right? This is kind of a different window.
Yeah, I remember her telling me about that afterwards later on. I was like, yeah, I had no idea she was thinking about it. It was just like any other date,
Yeah.
So.
I always wondered if I should never tell him about my anxiety. Could I really get away with never letting him know? I'm like, well, that was a pretty big part of my life, so I should share that with him.
Yeah.
But
at the right time, right?
yes,
you probably
exactly.
Kind of
when I've
bided
conquered
your
it.
time.
Yes, exactly. Well, I had this big life change coming where I was about to graduate college, and I was planning on moving to Milwaukee to do my student teaching, and no one knew me in Milwaukee. I didn't have any friends when I moved here. I just had a dream of being in Milwaukee and teaching here. And I thought to myself, it would be really sad if I got through 5 years of college and I didn't really go after this. That I have put my life on hold for as long as I can remember and avoided things, and now it's going to even be worse when I get to this new city because I don't know anybody, and I had at least made this kind of safe little community in Oshkosh and in Columbus who know my anxiety, and they're willing to be there for me and cheer me on. These people don't know me, and they don't know what's going on, and they would maybe be more upfront and ask why aren't you eating anything, or I don't know. So I wanted to start my new life in a new city with an actual new outlook on everything. And it just seemed like a very timely opportunity to do that. It's just everything kind of came together because really, without Learn to Live, I had no other plans. Yeah. I kind of doubted it at first because there were times when I felt like I was getting better, and then something, anxiety is always triggered too by the circumstances. I would get in a fight with a family member, and then I would be out to eat with somebody else completely not related at all, and then I would be anxious. Or it depended on who I was with, certain times, there's still certain people where I just get a little bit anxious, but it's a lot easier to overcome it. So when I first started making progress, I was kind of like, okay, I'm feeling better, but is it just because I'm comfortable with these people, or am I actually getting better? And I was very skeptical. I tend to be a skeptic in general. And then I started seeing those people that I would get really anxious around. Like, one of my professors invited me over for dinner, and that would be a really anxious situation for me. And I was totally fine, and I was thinking to myself, okay, well, maybe this isn't a fluke. And I don't think I actually believed it until I went on that first date with John, and it went really well, and I was like, holy crap, this really works, you know? I thought because I was just really surprised that counseling couldn't help me, but an online program could. It never really addressed the issue of this day-to-day stuff, where, yeah, I was dealing with all of my past, and that's mostly what we delved into, and my family relationships and where all of this came from, and oh, well, how are things doing at Thanksgiving, and how are you feeling about school? But it never really helped me to find ways to actually conquer it. It helped me analyze, but it didn't give me any tools to move forward and actually beat it. So I think it was really great to analyze my past, but you can only do so much analysis before you actually move on and get some results in your life. And Learn to Live was that for me. It was my results portion of the counseling. It definitely feels like a permanent change. I'm also realistic in knowing that there are times when anxiety crops up. Dr. Russ says this in the program, that there are just times when your life is more stressful and you have more triggers going on and you will feel anxiety. But the difference now is that I know that just because I'm feeling anxious, it doesn't mean that I have to feel anxious and that's the way it's going to be for the rest of the day, or that's the way it's going to feel every time I'm in this situation. And it doesn't mean that I failed just because I feel that way today or in that situation. It's just, okay, well, maybe that's the way it is today, and I'm going to sit here and destroy these automatic negative thoughts, and once they're gone, my day's going to be better, and then tomorrow's going to be back to the way it was. It doesn't feel like such a defeat like it did before. I actually did mention it to my friend. She kind of led on. She had a lot of similar symptoms that I did. Like, she wouldn't really eat around me and that kind of thing. And I just kind of asked her, do you feel weird eating around me? And she's like, yeah, kind of. And I'm like, well, you might want to think about this program. And I told her that it's really non-threatening. It's not like you have to face somebody and say, here's all my crap. I feel crazy, and these are all the reasons that I feel crazy, because you're just looking at your own computer screen. And if you need to check out and take a break and look at Facebook for a minute, you can, and deal with it, and you can write some stuff down and process it in your own time. And so in that way, it's very flexible, non-threatening, and I really like the characters. The animated characters are really cute, and they very much reflected how I felt. I didn't think that they could, but and I like that you can work at your own pace, and that you can kind of structure things to be to your specific anxiety. It's not just like a blanket cover all. The lesson on automatic negative thoughts, identifying them right away and addressing them head on, that really helped me. And I always kept thinking to myself, I'm taking back my island, because that's, the little tagline for getting through it all. It's just, this is mine to own. No one is making me feel this way. I am bringing these feelings on myself, and that I am in control of these feelings, and that if I just take time and identify, nobody knows that I'm doing all this in my mind as I'm smiling and eating my salad or whatever. I can be going through all the automatic negative thoughts and putting the kibosh on every single one. And there was one about being a fortune teller, like guessing what other people are thinking about you. And I was like, oh my gosh, I do that all the time. That's where the root of all of this is I'm making assumptions about what other people are thinking while I'm sitting here. And majority of them are not true. Who would stop being friends with me because I didn't finish my burger? You know, that's not a logical, rational thought. And when I say it out loud, it's like, pfft, duh. But when it's in your mind and you're feeling anxious, it becomes this crazy cloud that you just can't get through.